Good morning. This is Todd. This is a recording for a Revit end user on Revit Answer Day. His question is in regards to being able to print the reference lines from rooms and or spaces within a Revit model. Here I have a standard, just generic Revit model. It's got some standard walls in it, nothing fancy. I've got some spaces that I've placed, each one given a name and a number. If I open up Visibility Graphics dialog box, and head over to rooms or spaces. We'll start with rooms and expand. You can see we can put check marks for interior fill and reference so we can visually see both, but these sections here are grayed out so we cannot make any visual graphic overrides for those objects in the visibility dialog box. Same thing with spaces. We head down here and expand, you'll see the same issue. Now, I do not know if that is by design or if there's something else is going on, but because of that, I end up having to use a filter, which I just created a generic filter. And if we take a look at it, it's just called X, and it's looking at specifically spaces. And I can also have it set to look at rooms as well. And the filter is just to look at the comment section where it has an X. And by doing so, I can override the visibility of the projection lines and surfaces, and I changed it to a line weight of 6 and a color of red. Now doing this, I can visibly see the lines being red. I can turn my thin line command off, and now I can see the thick lines. The issue comes into play when we take a look at the sheet. It looks great on the view. The view looks very good on the sheet. I can see everything. But if I go to print, doesn't matter what machine that I select or what PDF printer that I select. If I go to, or any of the aspects here, if I go to the print preview, I do not see the line work, the cross-reference lines. And I have tried to look at every single setting for every single printer that I've got and PDF machine as well, and going into setups, and I cannot find anywhere that will allow me to override the settings to allow for Revit to print those reference lines. They do see the color, and it does print the color, but it doesn't print the lines. The logic and the reasoning behind why the end user wants to be able to print the reference lines is if they decide to go in here and change the color so that all the colors are somewhat similar. For example, next to each other, say D and E. So I'm going to switch D to something very similar to E, which is, let's say, this one. And so it makes it a little bit difficult, especially if there are no walls in place that divides the spaces. And if you don't have the reference lines, you can't tell where one space starts and one space ends. So that's the issue that's going on. My best understanding is that it has to do with the fact that the objects are not really actual 3D objects. And because they're actually not 3D objects that you can physically touch and play with, you cannot change any settings here in the rooms and spaces. So this is a screencast video to verify the information that I have found out, and it needs to be submitted to the developers for tech support purposes. Thank you very much.